Well, welcome everybody. What is going on? How about this for a show that we didn't think we were going to be doing just a few short weeks ago? But Ole Miss is heading to Omaha. How about that? Omaha is back. Chris Muller, I do not know about you, but I am feeling pretty super right now.
Austin, just super excited. And I mean, really, I haven't let the emotions catch up with me yet. Obviously, having to cover as media kind of affected me a little bit in that regard, but I'm just really excited for the team. It was a season. It was not a season that was in a straight line by any stretch of the imagination. By saying that, Tennessee obviously got a lump today, and their guys aren't happy, and they finished the nation as the number one team in the country, but aren't going to Omaha. And our team was the last team in from an at-large perspective, and we are going to Omaha. So it shows you how important this postseason is.
Yeah, it's not how you start, it's how you finish. And Ole Miss is not finished yet, but they looked dead in the water back when they were 7-14 in SEC play. And all you need is just a spark. And just like that, Ole Miss pulls off a sweep of Missouri, a sweep of LSU, wins 8 of their last 10 regular season games. And then they lose in Hoover to Vanderbilt, and all hope seems lost as the bubble looked like it had burst too much for Ole Miss to make it. And yet they sneak into the field as the 64th out of 64. They get sent to Miami to play in arguably the toughest regional in the country, win that regional in a 3-0 sweep, get sent down here to face one of the best pitching staffs in the country on a Saturday-Sunday matchup, and pitch 2 consecutive shutouts, something they had not done for the entire season up to this weekend.
Yeah, I think that's a testament to Dylan DeLucia yesterday and obviously Hunter Elliott today. 2 really strong starts from those gentlemen. And then defense just played well, and we got off the field when we needed to get off, and that's the name of the game. I was talking with a young man out in the roost before the game, and he said, defense is what really wins. The young man was right, and he was a Southern Miss fan, so it was a pretty interesting comment from a young man of his age. So hats off to that guy for calling a shot today. I don't think he really called the shot for us, but, hey, everything works out for a reason.
Yeah, and before we go too far, I would be remiss to not say a thank you to the Southern Miss folks here for their hospitality this weekend. They treated us well. The fans were very gracious to me, at least in my experience as well. I had several fans after the game yesterday when I was walking towards the press conference just say congratulations. And one of them actually had said, well, y'all enjoy Omaha before they even played today. I guess he saw into the future a little bit. But Ole Miss just played really well. But, yeah, shout out to the Southern Miss people. Very courteous and a lot of good hospitality down here, at least in my personal experience. So shout out to you guys for that. But, yeah, the way that this game went, there were several big moments defensively. Obviously, very early on, runner at third base, Tim Elko snags a line drive that would have scored the first run of the game and shifted momentum towards Southern Miss early. Then you have the bases loaded situation that Mallets gets out of late, just showing some absolute cojones to get out of that situation and preserve the lead and keep it a 5 or a 4-run deficit at the time. And then TJ McCants won at bat this weekend, and he made it count.
Yeah, a really cool moment for TJ toward the end of the game. Obviously, padded the lead for us a little bit. I think it was a big run. I realized it was the 5th run, but you're out of the slam zone at that point. And to go back to your point about the Southern Miss people, not only hats off to their fans and the administration that put on this wonderful super regional, but hats off to the Southern Miss players for the season that they had. They had the opportunity to host this regional for a reason, and that's because they were a really good ball club. Obviously, things didn't work out in the way they would have hoped for today, but still really strong players. Tanner held it together for a really long time, and we knew that it was going to be a battle with him. We didn't, I didn't think we were going to get to the 5th inning with no runs. I believe that's when we started plating our runs. So, hats off to them and their team for a wonderful season. Obviously ended not where they would have liked it to end, but we've been on the other end of that equation as well. And, only 8 teams get to go to Omaha. So out of the 64, there's 56 teams that are going to be sitting at home after tomorrow, I would assume. I haven't checked scores lately. But after tomorrow, there's going to be 56 teams that are sitting home with their season have ended. And then obviously the 8, including Ole Miss, moving on to Omaha.
Yes, and Scott Berry, just an absolute class act as well. Just a fantastic man, great coach. He's really done well here at Southern Miss, and you hate to see those guys with the emotion of their seniors not going on, but obviously in Ole Miss's case, it worked out for them to move on. And how fitting was it? Tim Elko makes the first big play of the game, really, by snagging that line drive I believe it was the first inning, maybe the second inning. And then he makes the final out of this game to send his team to Omaha. This is a guy, nobody deserves it more than the seniors on this team, and Tim Elko in particular for all he's done. And Mike Bianco talked about in the press conference, just it could not have been a more fitting end to this super regional than for Tim Elko to catch that pop-up in foul territory to send him to Nebraska.
Yeah, super great guy, a super great family. I actually had the opportunity to meet John, Tim Elko's dad, before the game, and I very quickly knew that the apple didn't fall from the tree when I met John. So really happy for all the families that have supported their young men throughout the year. And there were a couple people that talked about the press conference, but you have to remember where we were just a few short weeks ago, 7-14, and this team was able to hold it together. In the press conference, Mike talked about Chris Coughlin speaking to the team that weekend and what a difference that made, and talked about the goals that our team has. And the goal every year is to get to Omaha. And the comment that Chris made was, why should your goals change now that things have changed a little bit during the season, but you still have everything in front of you? Until they tell you to stop playing baseball is when your goals are still ahead of you for really any team in the country, but really our team as well. With the SEC tournament championship, if we would have needed to win that, you're still alive until the final out is captured.
Yeah, and they talked a lot about just toning out the noise, so to speak. Obviously, we live in a social media age. Mike talked about that. It's harder on the players because they see so much social media, and everybody's on social media, and you see all the negativity, and you see the noise coming in from the outside. And for Mike personally, he tones all that out. He doesn't get on it and pay attention to it, but he's been doing it for a long time. He's not in his 20s anymore. These guys are in the social media age, and they really talked about toning that out. Chris Coughlin talked about toning that out, and it really paid off for him. Don't let someone, I believe this was Mike's quote on it, don't let someone you wouldn't take baseball advice from tell you how your season's going to end or when the team is done.
Yeah, and I think that's a lot of great perspective from Mike. And I realize that it's a lot easier for Mike to stay off social media than it is for our players. But I would, take this opportunity to really encourage people to understand that they read the stuff that you send to them. And it might not affect them on a personal level, but when you start attacking their play and their things like that, understand that these are student athletes. And I realize they're playing athletics at the highest possible level in college, but in the end, they're student athletes. So let's remember to treat them like that all the time.
Yeah, they're human beings at the heart of it all, and they do see all that. And I mean, honestly, I always try to think about it if I was on the receiving end, how would it make me feel if somebody came and made personal attacks on me or talked about how much I sucked or how sorry we were or whatever the case may be. And, it's not going to feel good for anybody. And these are kids. These are generally 18 to 22-year-olds. Obviously, with the COVID year, you had a few older guys on the team because of those extra years of eligibility. But for the most part, these are young kids who are just really starting their main adult life or moving on to whether it be future baseball or future life in general. And these are guys, they see all that stuff. So I thought that was awesome of Mike to talk about, to kind of make a point to talk about the noise and how these guys do see that, but the ability of them to not take that to heart and keep fighting and look where they are now. And I tell you what, it's something that there for a long time you were like, well, Omaha might not be in the possibility this season. You get swept by Alabama and you're 7-14 in the conference. And all of a sudden you look up and they've gone 5-0 in the postseason, and they've thrown back-to-back shutouts. And as I mentioned, they had not had a single shutout all season long. And Hunter Elliott comes in with the most pressure that he's ever had to face in his young career and pitches a game of his life today.
We talked a little bit about that yesterday, and I was very optimistic or very sure that this moment wasn't going to be too big for Hunter. And Hunter talked about it, I believe it was last week, about going through Baum Walker. This crowd was into it. Don't get me wrong. I don't know how it it looked on TV or how other people felt about it, but they were into it from the first pitch really until the last out for Southern Mississippi. And they, at one point in time, I went to the restroom and I missed the first out, I believe, of the eighth inning. And there was a large cheer from the crowd. And I came back into the stands and I was like, well, what just happened? And I saw a runner on first. And I was like, I thought the guy hit a home run or something, to be very honest. And so, kudos to the fans for being in it from the very beginning to the very end. And they really wanted their team to win something awful.
Yeah, fantastic atmosphere here. I mean, it might not be the same as an SEC atmosphere, but for what Southern Miss has down here, it was an absolutely incredible atmosphere. The fans were great. I stepped out of the press box when we got down to that eighth inning. I came down in the midst of the fans and started making my way towards the dugout area for the dog pile that we were all rooting for. And they were loud, regardless of being down 5 runs. The noise level was incredible, despite the team looking like their season was over. And that was just really impressive. So, certainly a fan base that is behind their team from start to finish. And you don't see that everywhere you go. So despite the loss, 2 straight losses, 2 very, very disappointing losses for Southern Miss, the fans are behind them all the way. And that's pretty awesome to see, especially for the kids on the field seeing it.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about the offense because, while Tanner Hall held us at bay for a lot of the day, there were some really, really offensive standouts today. And, you start at the top of the lineup with Justin Bench. And I think Justin had struggled a little bit at the beginning of the series, but it went 3 for 5. So really, really strong performance from Justin. And then you had Gonzalez and Dunhurst both at 2 for 4. So really, really great performances from them. And just an overall great performance from a pass the baton standpoint. And I'm just really impressed with the resiliency of the team. And they just kept bouncing off the mat. And I think that's what we had to do to beat this team in their home environment.
Yeah, and we've talked about it over and over again throughout this last stretch. Is early in the season, particularly right after that Tennessee series, where it looked like when they got down, they just couldn't come back, or you weren't confident that they were going to come back. They were just struggling at the plate, not seeing the ball very well. Now they get down a few runs and you think, oh, this game's not over yet. And then when they get up by a few runs, you're like, well, nobody's catching them. They're just going to keep bouncing back. And we saw that down in Miami with Arizona taking a lead or tying the game and keeping those games close. Ole Miss is capable of playing with and beating anyone right now. And with the way their offense has been playing, I'm telling you, they are a dangerous team. I'm not about to sit here yet and make any predictions for Omaha. We'll get to that later. But they're a very dangerous team. And you get DeLucia and Elliott to throw games like they threw this weekend up in Nebraska, and you might see the Rebels make a little bit of a run.
I think we've got the potential to make a really, really strong run in Omaha. I don't think that based upon the regional that we went through, based upon the super regional that we went through, both of them being on the road, that the environment's not going to intimidate us. Obviously, it's going to be bigger than we've ever seen before from a crowd standpoint. Nebraskans like to pick a favorite team, I think, and I wouldn't be surprised if this is their team for the weekend. They like the underdog. It's kind of a Midwest kind of thing. So I'm asking anybody from Nebraska that is watching this, help us out. We'd appreciate the extra fans in the stands cheering us on. But yeah, I think that in the term it sets up a little bit different than regionals and super regional does, because you're not playing every day. You're playing every other day until you get toward the end of the thing. So I think we've got a chance. I've not looked to see what happened today as far as scores go, so I don't know if people are going to game 3s or people are stuck in game 2s. But I think that we will match up fine with anybody that's going to come our way.
Yeah, and by the way, I apologize if I keep rubbing my eyes with my shirt, people. It's very hot still out here. I have sweat running into my eyes, so don't pay attention to that. But as for the rest of the games today, Oklahoma punched their ticket to Omaha already with an 11-2 win over Virginia Tech. Notre Dame, how about the upset over Tennessee and Knoxville, 7-3? They're heading to Omaha. Arkansas is heading to Omaha with a 4-3 win over North Carolina, so the Hogs are back. Stanford is up on Connecticut right now, 8-2 in the third inning. And, of course, and Texas is up on East Carolina, or was. I don't know if that one's updated just yet. I'll check on that one. And then, of course, Ole Miss is headed to Omaha. So still a couple of games to go still. Auburn and Oregon State will go later tonight, and that is obviously one for Ole Miss to keep an eye on, because the winner of that Super Regional is who Ole Miss's first matchup will be against. And we've already seen Auburn once this year. Granted, it was early, but Ole Miss won 2 out of 3 on the road.
At this point, I don't know that makes any difference really at all. I think that was so early on in conference that you can look at some tape and see hitter tendencies and things like that. If we're talking about Auburn, I will suggest that we not pitch to Sonny D. He's a very powerful young man and a very Tim Elko-like personality. People gravitate to him a lot. So, but that would be my suggestion, is that we not pitch to Sonny D if we do get Auburn again. Haven't done a lot of scouting on Oregon State. Obviously know they're from the Pac-12. Did really well in the Pac-12. They're hosting a super regional. So, I mean, I'm just excited about the matchup, whatever it is. I'm excited to make the trip. The Rebel Walk will be there this weekend, starting this weekend. I don't know when I'm getting to town, if I'll get coverage of the celebration on Thursday night or not, but we will have staff that are there that are covering the event live and in person, so that's a lot of fun. For me personally, it's going to be a blast. I've never been to Omaha. It's one of those bucket list items for me that I had to do. And so I'm glad that I'm getting the opportunity to do that. Those that follow me on social media know that my friend Kenny is also going to make the trip with me, which I'm truly blessed and excited about. Kenny was a young man. He's in his 50s, but we were great friends, and he passed away in 2020. And so I've carried a cardboard cutout. If you've seen Cardboard Kenny around, I'm going to be proudly bringing him to Omaha with me. So Kenny and I are excited to make the trip.
Yeah, and that's an awesome story. And going back to what you touched on a moment ago about not pitching to Sonny DeShera, one thing that Ole Miss did this weekend, and we talked about it, what they did in Miami and what you had to do this weekend, was not let the guys beat you that are going to beat you. In this case, Christopher Sargent is the big name that stands out, and he got 1 hit in the entire weekend. And he got a triple. And so that's the only hit that he got. As far as I know, that was yesterday, and they held him at bay all weekend long. And Ole Miss held the guys that you're going to let somebody else beat you. Don't let that guy beat you. And that's exactly what they did. So, again, to your point about DeShera, don't let him beat you.
Yeah, and we'll have a preview show once everything gets set up and finalized. So I think it's going to be a really fun opportunity for the guys. I know they're super, super jacked. Their families are super jacked. And so I'm just looking forward to getting on the road. For me, it's straight up I-35. For people from Mississippi, I don't know how y'all get there, but I'm super. I mean, words really can't describe how excited I am to be able to go and to represent the Rebel Walk. But for my own personal fandom, to be able to go to the College World Series and see my Ole Miss Rebels participate on the grandest stage.
Yeah, for us Mississippians, it's about a 14-hour drive or so, give or take some. But we will have more coming for you later in the week. Obviously, we will have a preview show for you. Clearly, Ole Miss is going to Omaha. We're not going to let that one go by. And we'll have a lot more coverage for you. But for now, Ole Miss wins the Hattiesburg Super Regional 2-0. They are still undefeated in the postseason, heading into Omaha, Nebraska. And Tim Elko tweeted it out again about 30 minutes ago. I tried to tell him, don't let the Rebs get hot. Well, they're still hot, Chris, and they're moving on to the big stage.
They're smoking hot right now, and I'm just, I'm ready to go. Hotty toddy, gosh almighty, who the hell are we? Let's go to Omaha.
Let's go to Omaha. Hotty toddy, everybody. We'll have more coverage for you later in the week. Stay tuned over at the Rebel Walk for all those announcements and information, all that good stuff. Until then, signing off for the final time from Hattiesburg, Austin Eldridge and Chris Muller. It's been a fantastic time bringing all this coverage to you as usual. Hotty toddy, let's go to Omaha.
Hotty toddy, everybody.